The year was 2487 when the exploration ship Aegis 7 detected a faint, distorted signal drifting through the dark silence of space. At first, the crew thought it was just background noise from the black void, a region of the galaxy long believed to be empty and unreachable. But after deeper analysis, the signal revealed something impossible. A human signature, identical to the lost expedition that had vanished 100 years earlier without leaving a trace. Despite every warning from past explorers and the unsettling legends surrounding the black void, the crew knew they couldn't ignore a human call, no matter how old it was. Command authorized a mission to follow the signal, and Aegis 7 began its journey into a part of space where no star seemed to shine. As they moved closer, the darkness around them grew thicker, almost alive, as if it recognized their presence. Whispers of doubt spread among the crew, but duty outweighed fear. With the signal pulsing like a heartbeat guiding them forward, they prepared for the unknown. No one knew what waited beyond the final stretch of light, only that someone or something wanted them to come. And the deeper they went, the more they felt that this wasn't a rescue mission. It was an invitation. As the Aegis 7 glided closer to the coordinates of the signal, the crew felt a strange pressure settle over the ship, like the silent weight of a presence that could not be seen. The stars outside seemed dimmer, swallowed by a thin veil of darkness that stretched endlessly around them. Even the automated lights inside the corridors flickered as if reacting to something beyond human understanding. The pilot, Rhea, was the first to notice the instruments acting strangely. Navigation panels froze, screens glitched with static, and the ship's sensors kept detecting shapes that vanished the moment they tried to lock onto them. It felt as though the void itself was shifting around the vessel, changing its shape to watch them. No one said it out loud, but every member of the crew felt an uneasy chill. Soon, whispers began to drift through the intercom, soft, broken voices calling their names, echoing through hallways that were supposed to be silent. At first, the crew assumed it was interference from the strange signal, but the whispers sounded too real, too close. Some even swore the voices were familiar, belonging to people they had lost long ago. As they pressed deeper into the dark region of space, hallucinations began to take hold. Jonas, the communications officer, reported seeing a figure standing outside the observation window, floating without a suit, staring back with hollow eyes. Another crew member claimed to hear footsteps behind him though nobody was there. Fear slowly spread across the ship like a cold fog. The captain, Mira Hale, tried to steady her team, reminding them that space anomalies could distort perception. But even she felt the oppressive pull of the unknown. Every time she looked at the shadowy expanse outside, she sensed movement. Something gliding just beyond the lights of the ship, too large to fully comprehend. By the time the Aegis 7 reached the edge of the black void, the crew was shaken, exhausted, and unsure of what was real anymore. But one thing was certain. Whatever sent the signal was not simply waiting for them. It was watching, and it had been watching long before they arrived. The moment the Aegis 7 drifted close enough, the broken silhouette of the Orion appeared in the darkness, silent, frozen, and covered in a thin layer of black dust that looked almost alive. The crew stood at the observation window, staring at the lost research vessel that had vanished a century earlier. No signals came from it, no lights flickered on its hull. Yet something about it felt awake, as if it had been waiting for them. After securing docking clamps, Commander Hale led a small team across the airlock. The interior of the Orion was unsettlingly intact. Tools lay on the floors as if dropped mid-task. Chairs were pulled back as if someone had just stood up, and every corridor echoed with a strange, low hum. There were no bodies, no blood, not even signs of a struggle. It was as though the entire crew had simply dissolved into thin air. When they reached the control deck, the systems flickered to life with weak, dying energy. Screens buzzed, throwing distorted static across the room. Lieutenant Mira managed to access the ship's logs, and a series of voice recordings slowly unraveled the truth. The first logs sounded normal, routine work, simple research, observations about the unusual gravitational waves around the region. But then the tone changed. As they listened, the voices grew shaky, panicked. One log mentioned whispers in the dark. Another described seeing shadows move where there should be none. A later recording spoke of a black mass forming near the engine core, something that pulsed and reacted to human presence. The crew had tried to contain it, but the logs hinted that it was not a simple object. It was alive. The final recordings were nearly unintelligible. Distorted screams, frantic footsteps, and one repeated phrase from the ship's captain. The black mass is awake. Don't look at it. Don't think about it. It knows when we notice it. The audio ended abruptly, as if cut off mid-sentence. Hail stopped the playback, and silence swallowed the room. Everyone felt the same cold realization. Whatever happened to the Orion, it wasn't a natural disaster. As they prepared to leave, Mira pointed to the corner of the room, where the shadows seemed unnaturally thick, swirling in a slow, silent pattern. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was moving. The team backed away, understanding instantly that the Orion wasn't abandoned. It had been claimed, and something inside it had been waiting a very long time for new minds to feed on. The deeper the crew explored the derelict ship, the clearer it became that nothing about the signal made sense. The logs they recovered were fragmented, looping, and filled with static, as if someone or something had overwritten pieces of human speech. But one message remained untouched. A trembling voice repeated the same warning. It's not calling for help. It's calling for us. Those words echoed through the silent corridors, sending a cold shiver through the team. As the Aegis 7 scientists analyzed the data, a disturbing pattern emerged. The signal contained layers of information hidden beneath the surface, encoded in frequencies no human could naturally hear. These deeper layers formed shapes, mathematical structures so complex they felt alive. It was as if the signal wasn't crafted, but grown. Captain Raya began to suspect that the broadcast wasn't meant to be understood. It was meant to lure. The truth revealed itself when the ship's systems reacted to the signal. Monitors flickered, lights dimmed, and a low hum filled the bridge, vibrating inside their skulls rather than through the speakers. Dr. Malik realized the signal didn't target the electronics. It targeted the human brain. As the hum grew stronger, some crew members felt pressure behind their eyes, while others heard whispers forming full sentences. The intelligence behind the signal was reaching out, touching their minds, gently testing them. Soon, the Aegis 7 picked up a second transmission, this one so faint it was almost silent. It wasn't a message, but a pulse. Steady, rhythmic, and disturbingly similar to a heartbeat. When amplified, it formed patterns resembling neural activity, almost like the brain waves of a sleeping creature. The crew finally understood. The black mass mentioned in Orion's logs wasn't an object. It was a consciousness, an ancient, drifting entity that lived in the emptiness between galaxies. But the most terrifying discovery came when they decoded the final layer of the signal. Hidden within was a map of every human brainwave recorded by the Orion crew, copied perfectly, as if the entity had consumed their thoughts, memories, and identities. It learned who they were, how they felt, and what they feared. It didn't kill the Orion crew outright. It slowly absorbed them until nothing remained but empty shells wandering the dark until they disappeared. Captain Raya gathered her team and delivered the truth none of them wanted to hear. The entity was awake, aware of their presence, and now reaching for them. The signal wasn't a distress call at all. It was bait, a psychological trap designed by a being that fed on consciousness. And the longer they stayed inside the black void, the stronger its influence became. For the first time, the crew realized the real danger wasn't outside the ship. It was already inside their minds. The first signs appeared when Engineer Malik suddenly stopped responding during a routine systems check. When the crew found him, he was standing completely still, staring into empty space as if he was watching something no one else could see. His voice trembled as he whispered that he had seen the ship crash 1,000 times, and also seen it leave safely. He claimed both futures felt equally real. The crew tried to calm him, but deep inside, fear began to spread. Something was playing with their sense of time. As hours passed, more crew members began experiencing strange visions. Some saw memories from their childhood, vivid and detailed, as though reliving them again. Others saw events that had not yet happened, arguments, accidents, moments of danger. No one could tell what was real anymore. The boundaries between past, present, and future felt as thin as fog. Captain Reyes realized this was not random. The entity in the void was attacking their minds, not by force, but by confusion. The scientists studied the phenomenon and discovered that the hallucinations weren't just visions. They were intrusions, waves of psychic pressure coming from the dark mass outside. The entity wasn't trying to kill them. It was trying to wear them down, to make them surrender their consciousness willingly. This explained why there were no bodies on the Orion. The crew had simply given up their minds. A silent, clean harvest. Malik grew worse. He began screaming that the ship was exploding, that the walls were melting, that everyone was already dead. But when they touched him, he was cold and trembling, trapped between timelines his mind could not handle. The crew locked down the medical bay, trying to protect him and themselves from the growing madness. Every shadow in the halls felt alive. Every whisper in their ears came from nowhere. The void was inside the ship now, pressing against their thoughts. Captain Reyes gathered the remaining crew. They needed a plan before they all lost themselves. She believed the entity had a weakness, time itself. If they could break the loop of visions, even for a moment, they might weaken its grip. The idea was risky, using the ship's remaining energy to create a temporal pulse, a shock that might snap their minds back into one reality. If it failed, they would lose their last power source, and their last chance to escape. With shaking hands and fading focus, the crew worked together to initiate the pulse. As the countdown began, the visions grew stronger, almost desperate. The entity seemed to sense their resistance and pushed harder, flooding their minds with more illusions. Dead loved ones, impossible futures, final warnings. But they held on. When the pulse finally fired, the ship shook like it was tearing apart. Light burst through every corridor, and for the first time since entering the black void, the visions stopped. The crew gasped, their minds suddenly clear. They had broken the illusion, but the entity was still out there, waiting. The crew gathers in the command chamber, their faces pale under the flickering emergency lights. The presence of the cosmic entity is stronger than ever. Its whispers crawl through their thoughts like cold fingers. The captain, Ria Solis, studies the ancient control panel taken from the Orion's remains. It shows a single option, opening a temporal rift. It may offer a way out, but only if someone stays behind to keep the gate stable. She understands immediately what must be done, even before the others speak. The ship begins to shake violently as the entity presses closer, bending the metal walls with invisible pressure. Rhea steps forward and takes her place at the control terminal. Her voice is calm, steadier than anyone expected. She tells her crew that escape is possible, but only if she holds the rift open manually. The others protest, but she only smiles, small, tired, yet full of determination. "This is the only way," she says, as the darkness around them thickens like an ocean closing in. With trembling hands, the team activates the engines and prepares the jump sequence. The temporal rift blooms in front of the ship, a swirling gate of blue and white light cutting through the void. The entity reacts instantly, sending a wave of mental shock that nearly knocks everyone out. Rhea takes the hit alone, shielding her team by locking herself into the neural interface, forcing the rift to remain stable. The ship enters the rift slowly, like a boat pushed through a storm. The crew watches Rhea through the glass as she fights the growing pressure. Her surroundings distort, her figure flickering as time stretches and breaks around her. She gives them one final nod, a silent order to move forward, before the rift begins to collapse behind them. The last thing they hear is her voice, fading but fearless, telling them to survive. On the other side of the rift, the crew of the Aegis 7 is thrown into a burst of light. Space settles around them, calm and still, but the relief is short-lived. The readings show they are far from the black void. Yet something is wrong. Strange patterns appear on their scanners, repeating symbols they have never seen. The crew exchanges uneasy looks. Deep in their minds, faint whispers echo, familiar and chilling. As the shock fades, realization strikes. The entity did not stay behind. A fragment of it slipped through the rift with them, hidden inside their thoughts like a seed waiting to grow. Rhea's sacrifice saved their lives, but not their safety. The crew floats in the silence of space, knowing the darkness is not gone. It has simply changed form, now traveling with them closer than ever. The surviving crew finally returns to Earth, but the moment they step out of the shuttle, they realize home no longer feels like home. The air is familiar yet strangely heavy. Their families greet them with relief and joy, but the crew members exchange silent looks. They know something followed them back. At night, each one begins hearing faint whispers, like echoes from the void calling their names. No one else can hear them, only those who escaped the black void. As days pass, the visions grow stronger. The crew sees flashes of dark corridors, shifting shadows, and stars bending in impossible shapes. Some visions show the Orion crew, still trapped somewhere between time and nothingness. Others reveal glimpses of the entity itself, waiting, watching, learning. They begin to understand that the creature did not simply feed on awareness. It marked them, leaving a piece of itself inside their minds. And the mark is growing. The realization hits them slowly, painfully. The black void never intended to let them go. It allowed them to escape only so it could reach a new world, Earth. The lights of the city, the warmth of human life, the safety of home, none of it can push away the darkness whispering inside them. The crew stands together once more, staring at the night sky. The stars seem dimmer now, and somewhere in that darkness, something answers their gaze. The story is not over. The void has only just begun.